Get out of my house, I said, after my son-in-law planned my birthday party without asking. I was sitting in my recliner on a Tuesday morning, drinking coffee that was too hot and reading the newspaper like I had done every Tuesday for the last 30 years. The house was quiet. My wife had gone to her sisterhood breakfast at the diner on Main Street. The sun was coming through the living room windows and hitting the dust floating in the air. I remember thinking how nice it was to have nothing to do. No doctor's appointments, no favors to run for the kids, just a quiet house and a cup of coffee and the smell of spring coming through the screen door. My name is Frank. I am 69 years old. I worked 43 years in commercial HVAC, installed heating and air conditioning in schools and hospitals and office buildings all over the state. I have 2 children, a daughter named Krista, who is 41, and a son named Danny, who is 38. I have 4 grandchildren, 3 from Krista and 1 from Danny. I have been married to my wife Carol for 45 years next June, or at least I thought I would be. I should start from the beginning, but the beginning is a lie anyway. The beginning is just where we tell ourselves the story started so we can make sense of the ending. The truth is, the ending was always coming. I just could not see it because I was looking the other way. My daughter Krista married a man named Mark 15 years ago. Mark was handsome in that way that made old ladies smile at him in the grocery store. He had a good job selling medical equipment. He wore nice shoes and knew how to order wine. Carol loved him from the first dinner he came to our house. He brought her flowers, and he shook my hand too hard, and he called me sir. I thought he was fine. Not the kind of man I would have picked for my daughter, but fine. He was polite, he asked questions about my work, he pretended to care about the fishing trip I took with my father in 1987. That should have been the first sign. A man who tries that hard to make you like him is usually trying to hide something. But I did not know that then. I was just happy my daughter found someone who seemed stable. Krista had a wild streak when she was younger, dated guys with tattoos and bad attitudes, dropped out of community college twice, lived in a studio apartment above a pawn shop for a year. When she brought Mark home, I remember Carol crying in the kitchen after they left. Happy tears. She said, "Our girl finally found a good one." They got married at a country club, cost me $12,000 that I did not really have. I paid for the band and the open bar and the flower arrangements that I never even noticed. I walked Krista down the aisle and she squeezed my arm and whispered, "Thank you, Daddy." I almost cried, but I held it in because that is what fathers do. We hold it in and then we write the check and we tell ourselves it was worth it. The first few years were fine. Mark and Krista had their first baby, a boy they named Tyler. Then twin girls 2 years later, Emily and Sophie. They bought a house in a development about 20 minutes from us. Carol was over there 3 times a week helping with the kids. I went on weekends to fix things. Mark was not handy. He could not change a light bulb without calling someone. So I hung the curtains and assembled the cribs and fixed the garbage disposal and painted the nursery. I did it because that is what you do. You help your kids. You show up with your tools and you ask where they want the shelves, and you do not complain when your back hurts at the end of the day. But somewhere in those early years, I started to notice small things. Little cracks in the way Mark looked at me. Not gratitude exactly. Something closer to assessment, like he was measuring me, like he was trying to figure out how much I was worth. He started asking questions about my finances, casual at first. He would ask about my pension during a barbecue. He would ask about the house value while we were drinking beer on the porch. He would ask about my life insurance policy like it was just conversation. And I answered because I did not see the danger. I thought he was just a son-in-law making conversation. I thought he was trying to bond with me. Carol thought it was sweet. She said he was just being a good son-in-law. She said he was trying to make sure we were taken care of in retirement. I told myself she was right because it was easier to believe that to admit something felt wrong. My son Danny noticed it first. Danny is a quiet man. He works at a warehouse loading dock. He does not talk much, but he sees everything. He came over for dinner one night, and after Mark left, he sat at my kitchen table and looked at me with those dark eyes he got from my mother. "Dad," he said, "why is Mark asking about your house?" I told him not to worry about it. I told him Mark was just being helpful. Danny shook his head. "He is not being helpful, Dad. He is being nosy." I told him he was paranoid. I told him to focus on his own life. Danny has a temper when he gets pushed, so he let it go, but I saw the look on his face. the same look he had when he was a kid, and he knew something I did not. I should have listened to him. I should have paid attention to the son who never asked me for a dime, instead of the son-in-law who could not stop counting what I had. But I did not listen. I kept going to their house, I kept fixing their things, I kept watching the grandkids every time they asked, and they asked a lot. Every weekend it seemed like they had somewhere to go. A wedding, a work event, a weekend getaway with friends. They would call on Thursday night and ask if I could take the kids Friday through Sunday. And I always said yes, because I loved those kids. Tyler loved to help me in the garage. He would hand me tools and ask what each one did.
Emily would sit on the floor and draw pictures of our family. Sophie would fall asleep on my chest while I watched golf on TV. Those were the best days of my retirement. The days when my grandkids were in my house and everything felt like it used to feel when my own kids were little. What I did not know was that while I was changing diapers and making macaroni and cheese and reading bedtime stories, Mark was doing something else. He was waiting. He was planning. He was learning everything about my life so he could take it apart, piece by piece. The first real sign came 2 years ago. My brother, Richard, died. He was 72. Heart attack in his garden. Just fell over among his tomatoes and never got up. It was a shock. Richard and I were not close, but he was my brother. He was the last connection to my parents and the house we grew up in and the summers we spent fishing on the river. When he died, something in me shifted. I started thinking about my own death in a way I never had before. I started thinking about what I would leave behind. Not just money, but the house, the land, the stories. I started thinking about who would take care of Carol when I was gone. I told Carol I wanted to update my will. She said that was a good idea. She said we should do it together. So we made an appointment with a lawyer, a man named Mr. Hendricks, who had done some work for me years ago when I bought a rental property. We went to his office on a Tuesday morning. Carol wore her good coat.
I wore a tie. We sat in his office with the wood paneling and the smell of old paper, and he asked us what we wanted. I told him I wanted the house to go to Carol first. Then, after she passed, I wanted the house sold and the money split evenly between Krista and Danny. I wanted my tools to go to Danny because he would actually use them. I wanted my fishing gear to go to Tyler because he was the only one who ever asked me to teach him how to cast. I wanted the rental property to be sold and the money put into a trust for the grandchildren's education. Simple, clean, fair. Mr. Hendricks wrote it all down. He said he would draft the documents and have them ready in 2 weeks. That night, we had dinner at Krista and Mark's house. I mentioned we had been to the lawyer. I did not think anything of it. Just conversation. Just a father telling his daughter about his day. But Mark's face changed when I said the word lawyer. He put his fork down. He asked what kind of lawyer. I told him. He asked what we were doing. I told him that too, because why would I lie? He asked how the money would be split. I told him half to Krista, half to Danny. Mark did not say anything for a long moment. Then he smiled. He said that sounded fair. He said he was glad we were being responsible. He asked if we had considered putting some money aside for the grandchildren directly. I said we had. He asked if we had considered putting the house in a trust to avoid taxes. I said Mr. Hendricks mentioned that. He nodded and went back to his dinner, but I saw something in his eyes, a calculation, a shift, like someone doing math in their head and not liking the answer. A week later, Krista called me. She said she wanted to take me to lunch, just the two of us. That was unusual. Krista and I had a good relationship, but she was not the type to plan a lunch alone with her father. She was always busy. Always running somewhere, always with the kids or with her friends or with Mark. But she said she missed me. She said she wanted to catch up. We met at a diner near her house. She ordered a salad. I ordered a burger. We talked about the kids, we talked about the weather, we talked about nothing important for 20 minutes. Then she put her fork down and looked at me with the same eyes she used when she was a little girl trying to get a later bedtime. "Daddy," she said,
"Can I ask you something?" I told her she could ask me anything. She asked about the will. She asked what exactly I was leaving to Danny. I told her half of everything after Carol passed. She asked if she thought that was fair. I said yes. She asked if I thought Danny needed the money as much as she did. I did not know what to say to that. Danny works a warehouse job. He makes enough to live, but not enough to save. His wife left him 3 years ago, and he is raising my grandson Luke on his own. He drives a 10-year-old truck and wears boots with duct tape on the toes. So, no, he does not need the money as much as Krista does.
Krista has a nice house and 2 cars and a husband with a 6-figure job. But that was not the point. The point was fairness. The point was I raised 2 children and I loved them both the same. I told her that. I said the money is not about who needs it. The money is about what is right. She looked down at her salad. She said she understood, but her voice told me she did not understand at all. Her voice told me someone had been talking to her. Someone had been putting things in her head. I drove home that afternoon with a heavy feeling in my chest. I wanted to call Danny. I wanted to ask him what he thought, but I did not, because I did not want to start a fight. I did not want to be the father who pit his children against each other, so I kept it to myself. I went home and sat in my recliner and watched the news and told myself I was imagining things. I was not imagining things. The next few months were strange. Krista and Mark started coming over more often. They brought food, they brought wine, they brought the kids. They were suddenly very interested in our lives. Mark started asking about Carol's health. She had been having some issues with her knees, nothing serious, just arthritis. But Mark made a big deal about it. He said we should think about the future. He said we should think about what would happen if Carol needed more care. He said we should think about making things easier for the family. I asked him what he meant by easier.
He said things like power of attorney, things like medical directives, things like making sure someone could make decisions if we could not. I told him we already had that. I told him Danny was listed as my power of attorney and Carol's sister was listed for Carol. Mark nodded. He said that made sense. But he said maybe we should update it. Maybe we should make Krista the primary for both of us. He said she lived closer. He said she had more flexibility with her schedule. He said Danny worked long hours and might not be available if something happened quickly. I told him I would think about it. And I did think about it. I thought about it for weeks. I thought about Danny and how he would never ask me to change anything. I thought about Krista and how she was suddenly asking me to change everything. I thought about Mark and how he was always there in the background, like a spider weaving a web. But I still did not see the full picture. I still thought this was just family drama, just a son-in-law who wanted to be helpful, just a daughter who loved her father. I did not see that they were taking things from me one by one. Small things, paper things, things I could not hold in my hand. The birthday party came in May, my 70th birthday. I did not want a party. I told everyone that. I said I just wanted a quiet dinner with Carol and the kids and the grandkids. I said I did not want a big fuss. But Mark decided to throw a party anyway.
He rented a pavilion at a park near their house. He invited 50 people. He hired a caterer. He ordered a cake with a picture of me on it from when I was 20 years old. He sent out invitations without asking me. I found out about it when Carol came home from Krista's house with a big smile on her face. She said Mark was planning something special for me. She said I was going to be so surprised. I was not surprised. I was angry. I told Carol I did not want a party. She said it was already planned. She said we could not cancel now. She said Mark had already spent money on the deposit. So I went to the party. I wore a nice shirt. I smiled at everyone. I shook hands with people I had not seen in years. I ate the catered food and I blew out the candles on the cake. And I listened to Mark give a speech about what a great father-in-law I was. He talked about how I had always been there for them, how I had helped them buy their house, how I had watched their kids, how I had fixed their plumbing and their electrical and their broken hearts. He made me sound like a saint. He made me sound like someone he actually loved. After the party, we drove home. Carol fell asleep in the car. I drove in silence. Something was bothering me, but I could not name it. It was not the party. The party was fine. It was something Mark said during his speech. He said I had always been there for them. He said they could always count on me. He said they knew I would do anything for my family. I realized later what bothered me. It was not what he said. It was how he said it. He said it like he was making a statement of fact, like he was describing a contract, like he was putting into words the arrangement that had been in place for 15 years. I give, you take. That was our relationship. A month after the party, I got a call from Mr. Hendricks. He said he needed to see me. He said there was a problem with the will documents. I drove to his office the next day. Carol was at physical therapy for her knees, so I went alone. Mr. Hendricks sat me down in the same chair I had sat in before. He had a yellow legal pad on his desk with notes written all over it. "Frank," he said, "I need to ask you something. Did you recently sign any documents related to your house?" I said no. He asked if I had given anyone permission to act on my behalf. Financial permission? Legal permission? I said no again. He took a breath. He said he had been reviewing the property records for my house as part of the will work. He said he found something strange. He said a lien had been placed on my house 6 months ago. A lien for $45,000. I did not understand what he was saying. I asked him to explain it again. He said someone had taken out a loan against my house. Someone had used my property as collateral. Someone had signed my name on documents that transferred a portion of my equity to a lending company. I told him that was impossible.
I told him I had never signed anything like that. He asked if I had ever given anyone my social security number, my driver's license, any official identification. I thought about it. I thought about all the times Mark had asked for my information, all the times he said it was for something small, for a background check for the kid's school, for a credit check for a new cell phone plan, for a form at the doctor's office. I had given him everything over the years because he was my son-in-law, because I trusted him. Mr. Hendricks asked if my wife had signed anything. I told him Carol would never sign something like that without telling me. But then I remembered the times Mark had taken Carol to lunch, the times he had offered to help her with paperwork, the times he had told her not to worry her pretty head about the details. I left Mr. Hendricks' office and drove straight to Krista and Mark's house. I did not call first. I did not warn them. I just showed up. Mark answered the door in shorts and a golf shirt. He was smiling. He asked if I wanted to come in for a beer. I asked him about the lien. His smile did not change. He said he did not know what I was talking about. I told him Mr. Hendricks found it. I told him I had the paperwork in my truck. I told him I was going to the police if he did not explain what happened. That is when his face changed. The smile went away. Something cold came into his eyes. He looked at me like I was a stranger, like I was an obstacle.
He stepped outside and closed the door behind him. He stood on the porch with me, and he lowered his voice, and he told me something that made my legs go weak. He said the money was for Krista. He said she deserved it. He said I had given Danny money over the years that I never gave to her. He said Danny got to go to trade school for free while Krista had to take out student loans. He said Danny got my truck when his car broke down while Krista had to finance her own minivan. He said Danny was always the favorite and Krista was always the one who got left behind. None of that was true. Danny went to trade school on a scholarship. He never asked me for a dime. The truck I gave him was a 2002 Ford with 200,000 miles on it. Krista never wanted the truck. She wanted a brand new SUV, which Mark bought for her with money from his own salary. But Mark had rewritten history in Krista's head. He had convinced her that she was the victim. He had convinced her that I owed her something. He had convinced her that taking money from me was not theft. It was justice. I asked him where the money went. He said it went to credit card debt. He said it went to a vacation they took to Mexico last winter. He said it went to private school tuition for Tyler. He said it was all for the family.
I could not speak. I could not move. I stood on that porch in the afternoon sun and I felt my entire life tilt sideways. The house I had worked 43 years to pay off. The house where my children grew up. The house where Carol and I were supposed to grow old together. They had taken a piece of it. They had carved out a chunk of my future and spent it on a vacation and a credit card bill. I asked him how he did it. He said Carol signed the papers. He said he told her it was for a home equity line of credit. He said he told her it was for emergency repairs. He said she did not read the fine print. He said she trusted him, the same way I trusted him, the same way everyone trusted him. I went home that night and I found Carol in the kitchen making dinner. She was humming. She did not know what happened. She did not know that she had signed away $45,000 of our lives. I told her. I showed her the papers Mr. Hendricks had printed. She read them at the kitchen table with her reading glasses on. She turned pale. She started to cry. She said Mark told her it was for a new roof. She said he said the insurance company required it. She said she did not understand what she was signing. I believed her. Carol is not stupid, but she is trusting. She sees the good in everyone. She has never met a person she did not want to feed or help or pray for. Mark knew that. He used that. He took her love and her trust and he turned it into a weapon.
I called the police the next morning. I filed a report. I gave them all the documents Mr. Hendricks had found. I gave them Mark's name and his address and his phone number. The detective asked me if I wanted to press charges. I said yes. I said I wanted him to go to jail. That is when Krista called me. She was screaming. She said I was ruining her husband's life. She said I was ruining her children's lives. She said I was a terrible father. She said I never loved her. She said I always loved Danny more. She said if I went through with this, she would never speak to me again. I told her I loved her. I told her I would always love her. I told her that Mark had stolen from us. I told her that was not love. That was not family. That was crime. She hung up on me. The investigation took 8 months. 8 months of interviews and document reviews and meetings with lawyers. 8 months of silence from Krista. She would not take my calls. She would not answer my texts. She would not let me see the grandchildren. Carol tried to reach out to her. She went to their house 3 times. Each time Mark came to the door and said Krista did not want to talk. He said she needed space. He said she was processing. What she was processing was how to blame me for something her husband did. The case finally went to court. Mark was charged with fraud and identity theft and elder exploitation. He sat at the defense table in a nice suit. Krista sat behind him, holding his hand. Carol sat next to me, holding my hand. Danny sat on my other side. The courtroom was cold. The benches were hard. The judge was a woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had seen this before. She had seen families tear each other apart over money. She had seen children turn on parents. She had seen sons-in-law steal from old men. The evidence was clear. Mark had forged my signature on 3 separate documents. He had used my social security number without permission. He had lied to Carol about what she was signing. The lending company had a recorded call where Mark pretended to be me. His voice on the tape was close, but not close enough. The jury took 4 hours to convict him. He got 3 years in state prison. Restitution of $45,000, plus interest and legal fees. He stood there in his nice suit while the bailiff put handcuffs on him. He did not look at me. He looked at Krista. She was crying. The twins were crying. Tyler was staring at the floor. I watched my daughter hold her children while her husband was led away in chains. And I felt nothing. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Nothing. Just a hollow space where my heart used to be. After the trial, Krista moved out of the house. She could not afford the mortgage without Mark's income. She moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. She did not tell me where. I found out from Danny. He heard it from a friend of a friend. He said she was struggling. He said she was working 2 jobs. He said the kids were having a hard time at school. I wanted to help her. I wanted to call her and tell her to come home. I wanted to hold my grandchildren and tell them everything would be okay.
But I could not. Because every time I thought about picking up the phone, I remembered the way Mark looked at me on that porch, the coldness in his eyes, the way he said I should be happy to help. And I knew that Krista had been part of it. Maybe not the forgery, maybe not the calls, but she knew. She knew something was wrong. She chose not to ask. She chose to look the other way because she wanted the money. She wanted the vacation. She wanted the private school. She wanted to believe the lie because the truth would have meant giving up the life she thought she deserved. Carol and I are still together, but something is different now. She does not look at me the same way. She looks at me like she is waiting for me to blame her. I do not blame her. I blame myself. I should have seen it. I should have asked more questions. I should have listened to Danny when he warned me. I should have protected my house and my money and my wife from a man who smiled too much and asked too many questions and never once offered to help me with anything that did not benefit him. Danny comes over every Sunday. He brings Luke. We work in the garage. We fix things that are not broken just to have something to do. We do not talk about Krista. We do not talk about Mark.
We just stand next to each other and turn wrenches and listen to the radio and pretend that everything is fine. But everything is not fine. The house feels different now. The walls feel thinner. The quiet feels heavier. I sit in my recliner on Tuesday mornings and drink my coffee and read the newspaper. And I think about how fast it all fell apart. 15 years of being a grandfather. 15 years of changing diapers and building tree houses and teaching a boy to throw a baseball. 15 years of being the bank and the babysitter and the handyman. And none of it mattered. None of it was real. They were just keeping me close so they could take what I had when they were ready. I still have the lien on my house. The restitution payments are slow. Mark makes pennies in prison. Krista has nothing left to give. The lending company does not care about my story. They just want their money. So I am paying it back myself. $45,000 plus interest. Money I saved for retirement. Money I plan to leave to my grandchildren. Money that is now going to a bank because my son-in-law wanted to go to Mexico. I have not seen my daughter in 18 months. I have not seen Tyler or Emily or Sophie in even longer. I do not know what they look like now. I do not know if Tyler still likes fishing. I do not know if Emily still draws pictures. I do not know if Sophie still falls asleep on people's chests. They are strangers to me. My own grandchildren. Strangers.
Sometimes I drive past their old house. The one I helped them buy. The one where I painted the nursery and fixed the garbage disposal and hung the curtains. There are new cars in the driveway now. A different family lives there. They have a dog, a golden retriever that runs around the backyard. They look happy. They do not know that a man lost his family in that house. They do not know that a father sat in that driveway and cried for an hour before he could drive away. I think about the birthday party sometimes. The one Mark planned without asking. The pavilion and the caterer and the cake with my picture on it. I think about his speech. How he said I would do anything for my family. How he said they could always count on me. How he smiled at me like I was his own father. He was not wrong. I would do anything for my family. I did do anything. I did everything. And in the end, it was not enough. Because the people I was doing it for were not my family at all. They were just people who shared my last name and my blood and my home. They were strangers wearing masks. And when the masks came off, there was nothing underneath but greed and hunger and a love so small I could hold it in one hand. Carol wants me to forgive Krista. She says life is too short. She says she does not. I understand that. I understand because I do not want to die without seeing my daughter either. But forgiveness is not a light switch.
Forgiveness is a door that someone else has to walk through. And Krista has been standing on the other side of that door for 1.5 years. She has not knocked. She has not called. She has not sent a letter or a text or a message through Danny. She has chosen silence. She has chosen her husband. She has chosen the lie. So I sit here in my recliner, I drink my coffee. I read my newspaper. I watch the dust float in the sunlight. And I wait. I wait for a phone call that never comes. I wait for an apology that will never be spoken. I wait for my grandchildren to grow up and find me on the internet and ask why I was not at their birthdays or their school plays or their graduations. And when they ask, I will not have an answer that makes sense, because none of this makes sense. Family does not make sense. Love does not make sense. Betrayal does not make sense. It just happens, and then you live with it. Or you do not. I am still living. Barely. The house is paid off, except for the lien. The garage still has my tools on the wall. The truck still starts in the morning. And I still have Danny. I still have Luke. I still have Carol, even if she looks at me different now. That is something. That is not nothing. But it is not enough. It will never be enough. Some nights I sit in the dark after Carol falls asleep. I sit in my recliner with no lights on. I listen to the house settle, the creaks and groans of a building that has stood for 50 years. I think about all the dinners we had in this house, all the Christmases, all the birthdays, all the times my children ran through these rooms laughing, all the times I thought I had built something that would last. I built nothing. Or maybe I built something and they tore it down. It does not matter which. The result is the same. I am an old man in an empty house with a lien on his future and a daughter who looks through him like he is made of glass. Mark gets out in 18 months. 18 months and he will be free. He will find Krista. He will move back into her apartment, or she will move into a new house with him. They will try to rebuild. They will tell themselves a different story, a story where I am the villain, a story where I destroyed their family because I would not let them steal from me. That is the part that keeps me awake at night. Not the money, not the house, not even the grandchildren. It is the story they tell themselves, the way they have rewritten everything so that I am the one who broke us apart. I did not break us apart. I caught them breaking us apart, and instead of stopping, they just blamed me for noticing. I will probably die in this house. I will probably die sitting in this recliner with a cup of cold coffee next to me and the newspaper on the floor. Carol will probably find me, or Danny will, or maybe no one will find me for days because no one comes to check anymore. That is the loneliness of being old.
You become invisible long before you become dead. If you are listening to this and you are younger than me, take this piece of advice. Look at the people closest to you, the ones who smile too much, the ones who ask too many questions, the ones who always need something. Look at them hard. Look at them like you are a stranger looking at them for the first time. Ask yourself what they want from you. Ask yourself what happens when you stop giving. Ask yourself if their love would survive your refusal. Because I thought my family's love would survive anything. I was wrong. Their love survived exactly as long as my wallet was open. And the moment I closed it, they showed me who they really were. I am Frank. I am 69 years old. I am a father and a grandfather and a husband. And I am alone in a house full of ghosts. That is my story. That is all I have left to give.